Good afternoon, former Chief Sloly. My name is Rob Kittredge, and I'm counsel to the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms in these hearings. I think maybe we had all hoped that the towing question was put to rest last week, but it's starting to look like a bit of an inquiry into a purported national towing emergency. So I've got a few questions to ask on that subject about what your conversation with Counsel for Canada earlier today. You indicated that you felt that there were two main obstacles to clearing the Ottawa protests. First, you needed additional resources, meaning about 1,800 people, skilled police officers or skilled associated people. And second, you needed to secure heavy towing services. Is that a fair characterization of your testimony?
From a resource standpoint, that's what I was needing. I was needing a lot more beyond resources to have a safe, successful outcome that was envisioned. All right.
So maybe on that note, I'll skip the next two questions and jump to something a little more certain. In your conversation with Counsel for Canada, you said that while you may have had some concerns about their willingness to participate in clearing the protests, tow trucks were there. When you say that tow trucks were there, you're talking about the city's standing order towing contractors, weren't you?
So my understanding was we had somewhere between 3 to 5 tow trucks available to us on the first weekend. And those numbers did not increase to my knowledge until my last day in office.
Right, so those would be the towing contractors that you typically deal with when you have towing to do on any given day.
City-owned vehicles and or tow contracts. But again, I'm not certain about the tow contract part of things.
Right.
Just the number of vehicles.
Okay, you weren't directly involved in the procurement of towing services for the eventual police operation that cleared the protests, were you?
No, sir.
And in fact, that procurement was handled by the OPP and not the OPS, isn't that true?
I don't know who handled it, sir.
Right. But you don't have any direct knowledge related to the out-of-town towing services procured by the OPP at all, do you?
No.
So you really don't know if there was any reason to think that the tow trucks procured by the OPP weren't, as you put it earlier to Counsel for Canada, reliably and predictably engaged to provide towing services during the police operation, do you?
Well, what I was talking about to Canada Council was the need for reliable predictability around the resources necessary for any operational plan of the scale that was being considered. If your question is that did I know whether this contract was going to prove reliable and predictable, I had no involvement in that contract.
Right. And the towing providers that eventually participated in the police operation had traveled long distances to Ottawa, and if the OPP was confident that they were in fact ready, willing, and able to participate in the towing operation, you have no reason to disagree with their opinion, would you?
I had no involvement in whatsoever, so I can't comment on it whatsoever.
Right. But you'd have no reason to disagree with their assessment.
Again, I had no involvement in it, sir.
Okay, fair enough. And Counsel for Canada also asked you about national security issues relating to the protests. I take it that you agree with the evidence from all OPP and OPS officers who've testified on the subject so far, that there was no credible intelligence or evidence indicating a threat to the security of Canada, as that term is defined in Section 2 of the CSIS Act. Do you?
I'm unfamiliar with Section 2 of the CSIS Act, and I've heard some testimony. From where I stood, this was a national crisis.
Right, but did you have any credible intelligence or evidence of espionage or sabotage against Canada, or that which is detrimental to the interests of Canada, or activities directed toward or in support of such espionage or sabotage?
No, sir.
Did you have any credible intelligence or evidence of foreign-influenced activities within or relating to Canada that were detrimental to the interests of Canada and were clandestine or deceptive or involved a threat to any person? If you'd like me to read that again, I'm happy to do it.
From where I sat in Ottawa and the information available to me, there were significant elements of foreign funding. There were briefings that people might be coming north of the border to join in some of the protest activities. I can't rule out, as police chief here, that there were not some elements of other nation involvement in one way or the other. Whether it rose to the level as you're describing under Section 2. I don't have any ability to say that, sir.
Right. So you're saying that you had credible intelligence or evidence of such a threat?
I had information available to me that suggested there were activities taking place beyond our borders.
That there were activities taking place beyond Canada's borders. So, I mean, I guess, can you just...
I didn't test it with any great measure. Again, the level that you're describing in Section 2, this is
Right.
just the vast funnel of information that was coming to me, and there was different calls where questions were being asked or information was being provided about whether or not convoys were joining from United States into Canada, whether or not the convoys here were impacting other countries, whether or not money was flowing into any of the different funding projects from foreign sources. So I'm just telling you, in the sum total of all the information that I was aware of, some of it related to activities outside of our borders.
Right, but would it be fair to describe that as you had a information or a suspicion that there might be participants in the protests coming from outside of Canada, and that some amount of funding might have been directed, donations to the GoSendMe account or GoFundMe account or whatever?
That's the balance of
from
the
outside of
information that I
Canada.
had, yes.
So that would be the that's what you're talking about when you're talking about foreign influenced activities?
Yes, sir.
All right. And there was nothing mentioned in the Hendon report about a credible threat on that?
I don't have a complete memory of the Hendon report, so I wouldn't be able to say for certain.
But you don't think, as a matter of recollection, that that's the source of your information?
There were some 20-odd, 24, 30 Hendon reports. I can't tell you whether or not it was ever mentioned within the Hendon reports. It's a question probably better placed to the OPP.
Sure. With regard to your own recollection on this subject, can you remember what the source of the information that you're talking about was?
There was a discussion at one point on the tri-party level where I believe CSIS Director Vigneault referenced his discussions with CBSA and other entities around whether or not convoys were coming north, people were crossing the border. He made some reference to international funding as an example.
And that would be funding in the level of donations to the GoFundMe
I couldn't
account,
tell you how he broke down the funding comment, but that's my recollection, sir.
All right. Well, then I'll move on to the last two items here, and I'll be finished with you for the day. So did you have credible intelligence or evidence of activities within or relating to Canada directed toward or in support of the threat or use of acts of serious violence against persons or property for the purpose of achieving a political, religious, or ideological objective within Canada?
There was a wide array of social media posting. I don't know to what extent they were all identified, validated, and in one way or the other canceled as a threat, but I was aware of a wide variety of open source social media that made a wide range of threatening type behavior that might touch on one or more of the points that you raised, sir.
And do you consider any social media post to be a credible threat?
On its own, no. It has to be validated and corroborated by other information.
But you aren't aware of any social media post that was validated and corroborated?
Not to my awareness, sir, no.
Okay, thank you. And was there any credible intelligence or evidence of activities directed towards undermining by covert unlawful acts or directed toward or intended ultimately to lead to the destruction or overthrow by violence of the constitutionally established system of government in Canada?
No, sir.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and my sympathies and I'm very impressed with your sheer endurance here and on Friday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.